$500 million disappeared the second my boss dropped my contract renewal into the trash. He didn't hesitate, didn't pause, didn't even check the page count, just lifted the folder, glanced at the signature line, and let it fall. "It's just the AI era," he said, already turning his chair back toward the screen behind him. "Don't take it personally." I looked at the trash can, then at him. "So that's it?" I asked. After 14 years, he smiled, thin and practiced. "Nora, everything you built is automated now. That was when the lights went out. Not a flicker, not a warning. Gone." The conference room went silent for half a second, just long enough for confusion to register. Then the alarm started. Red warning panels lit up along the glass walls. Sirens cut through the building, sharp and unignorable. Somewhere down the hall, someone shouted that the production lines had frozen. My boss stood so fast his chair slammed into the wall. "What the hell is this?" he barked. "Restart the system." An engineer's voice crackled over the intercom, tight with panic. "Manual restart denied." His phone rang. He answered immediately. Yes, whatever he heard made his face drain. "We switched control this morning," he said. "The AI is fully deployed." The voice on the other end didn't raise. It didn't need to. "So AI can replace everything she did," the CEO said, "because it just burned me $500 million. "You'd better explain." My boss slowly turned toward me. I didn't speak. I didn't have to. "The story you are about to hear is a fictional work created by the writing team at Her Revenge. It explores what happens when experience is mistaken for obsolescence, when power ignores responsibility, and when people learn too late that systems remember who built them. My name is Nora Hayes," I said calmly. "I designed the authority structure you just voided." His mouth opened, closed. "You told HR my contract wasn't necessary," I continued. "That ended my operational key." "That's not how AI works," he said. Louder now. "It is," I replied. "Because I wrote the rules, it follows." Outside the room, the sirens kept screaming. Production stood frozen across the floor, and for the first time since he arrived, no one looked at him for answers. They were all looking at me. How does a system decide who it listens to? The factory floor erupted into motion the second the alarm spread beyond the conference room. "Try a cold restart," someone shouted. "It's rejecting the command." Another voice answered, already louder than it needed to be. I stepped out just as 3 engineers clustered around the main console. Samir, the senior controls lead, glanced up when he saw me. "It's not accepting manual input," he said. "Every permission we have is getting blocked." "Show me the log," I said. My boss cut in before Samir could move. "We don't have time for this. Override it." Samir hesitated. "We already tried standard escalation, then force it," my boss snapped. "That's what escalation is for." The screen updated on its own. A single line appeared, stark and unhelpful. "Human authority, key invalid." The room went quiet. "That doesn't make sense," my boss said. "We transitioned control this morning." I kept my voice level. "You transitioned dashboards, not authority." He turned toward me, irritation flaring. "Nora, this isn't about titles anymore. The AI handles decision-making now. AI doesn't handle authority," I said. "It enforces it." Samir swallowed. "She's right. The system won't accept commands without a validated human key." My boss waved him off. "Keys expire. Systems adapt." "They don't," I said. "They obey rules." He stepped closer. Lowering his voice like that made him reasonable. "You're emotional? Step back." "I'm factual," I replied. "If you force an override, it'll reroute load without safety confirmation." He didn't blink. "Do it." Samir looked between us. "If this cascades, do it," my boss repeated. The override executed. For half a second, nothing happened. Then the floor monitors lit up again, this time with red blocks spreading across the grid. A shout from down the line. "Secondary systems just tripped." Another voice. "We lost cooling on 2 bays." Samir's hands shook as he pulled back. The override bypassed the stabilizers. I looked at my boss. That was preventable. He stared at the screens, jaw tight. "Fix it." "I can't," I said. "Not without the key." The alarms grew louder, and the losses kept climbing. Who pays the price when efficiency replaces understanding? The announcement came less than 48 hours after the override failure. My boss didn't call a meeting. He sent a message. Restructuring effective immediately, he said, standing near the line with a tablet in his hand. We're removing redundancy. Frank Delaney was called forward. 30 years maintaining machines most people were afraid to touch. He wiped his hands on a rag and waited. Frank, my boss said, not unkindly. Your position has been eliminated. Frank blinked. Eliminated. We've automated predictive maintenance, my boss continued. AI handles variance better than instinct. I stepped between them. You can't be serious. He looked at me, annoyed. Nora, this isn't personal. It never is, I said. That man knows the machines better than your dashboards. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't have to. AI doesn't rely on instincts. Frank finally spoke. I rely on sound, heat, smell, which introduces bias. My boss said, we're optimizing. Frank nodded once, slow. Then I guess I'm inefficient. He walked away without another word. 3 days later, Samir found me by the console. Line 7 is running hot, he said. AI says it's within tolerance. I listened. Not with my ears. With the silence Frank had left behind. Shut it down, I said. We don't have authorization. It'll spike. I said, give it 10 minutes. It took 8. The spindle seized mid-cycle. Titanium warped. A full batch went to scrap. My boss arrived, furious. Why wasn't this flagged? Samir hesitated. Frank used to catch that pattern. My boss turned to me. Are you saying the AI failed? I'm saying you removed the person it learned from, I replied. He stared at the ruined line, then back at me. We'll recalibrate. With what I said, data from a machine you just destroyed. He didn't answer. Across the floor, workers stood still, watching the scrap bin fill. Frank's locker was already empty. And the system kept running, blind to what it no longer understood. What if the future everyone praised was built on a lie? I didn't go looking for proof. Proof came looking for me. The vendor contract was already open on my screen when Lydia from procurement paused at my doorway. She didn't step inside. You didn't get this from me, she said. I didn't ask. I replied. She nodded once and left. I scrolled. Implementation timeline 6 months. Impossible. Safety validation deferred to post-deployment. Missing. Cost adjustments 3 revisions, each higher than the last. I picked up my phone and called Samir. Did you know the budget doubled? I asked. There was a beat. They told us it was normal. Normal for who? He didn't answer. I kept reading until a single line stopped me cold. Manual restart restricted to system architect of record. I leaned closer, as if the words might change if I stared long enough. The name listed underneath hadn't been updated. Nora Hayes. I laughed once, sharp and humorless. They replaced my role. They erased my access. They announced I was obsolete. But they never replaced my authority. My boss walked past my office and saw the contract on my screen. Still digging, he asked. I'm reading, I said. There's a difference. He stepped in, confident. That contract is airtight. It can't be, I replied. You didn't change the control architecture, he frowned. We don't need to. The vendor handles. The vendor handles analytics. I cut in, not responsibility. He crossed his arms. You're clinging to relevance. No, I said. I'm listed as the last human checkpoint in a system you don't understand. That's a formality. It's a lock, I said. And you don't have the key? For the first time, he looked uncertain. You're not authorized anymore. He said, I'm recorded. I replied. Those aren't the same thing. He stared at the contract, then at me. This conversation is over. He left without closing the door. I stayed where I was, staring at my own name. The system hadn't forgotten me. It was waiting, and if anything went wrong next, there would be no one else it would listen to. What if telling the truth makes you the problem? I had the documents organized, timelines aligned, change orders highlighted. The board packet was clean, factual, impossible to misunderstand. I didn't get to open my mouth. Before Nora begins, my boss said, standing without looking at me, there's something the board needs to understand. Patricia Lowell, the board chair, tilted her head. Go on. We're dealing with legacy obstruction, he said calmly. Resistance disguised as concern. I felt the room shift. That's not true, I said. He smiled, sympathetic. Nora has been struggling to adapt. She's been accessing contracts outside her scope, questioning authorized decisions, spreading anxiety on the floor. I leaned forward. I found undocumented cost escalations and missing safety clauses. He turned to the board. This is exactly what I mean. Pattern fixation. Patricia frowned. Nora, are you saying the contract is unsafe? I'm saying it transfers risk without accountability, I replied. And it leaves one person, me, as the only restart authority. That's a historical artifact. My boss said, we're modernizing. Robert Klein, another board member, cleared his throat. Is it true you accessed vendor files without clearance? They were never restricted, I said, until today. My tablet went dark in my hands. A small notification appeared before the screen locked completely. Access revoked. I looked up. You just cut me off. My boss nodded. Given the concerns, it's prudent. Prudent to silence me, I said. Patricia avoided my eyes. We need stability. Then you need the truth, I said. And you're choosing not to hear it. My boss gathered his papers. This meeting is about the future, not clinging to the past. The board members exchanged glances. No one spoke. Patricia finally said, we'll proceed without further disruption. I stood slowly. If something breaks, you won't see it coming. My boss didn't look up. That won't be your problem. Security credentials failed at the door on my way out. The lock disengaged anyway after a delay. I hadn't programmed to feel this personal. Behind me, the boardroom door closed, and the system was still running, with fewer safeguards than it had an hour earlier. Can experience be fired like an employee? The failure came at dawn, quiet at first, then undeniable. Samir found me in the corridor before I reached my desk. Line 4 just dropped torque, he said. Exactly where you flagged it. I told him the load curve was unstable. I replied. He exhaled. He said AI recalibrated overnight. The machine didn't care. By the time we reached the control bay, the spindle had seized. A full run of precision components was ruined. Metal warped beyond salvage. The floor manager stood frozen, headset dangling from his neck. My boss arrived minutes later, anger already rehearsed. This is what I warned the board about, he said loudly. Legacy interference creates blind spots. I stared at him. You ignored a maintenance hold. You undermined confidence. He shot back. Now we have proof. HR stepped forward. Elaine. Clipboard tight against her chest. Nora. We need to speak privately. There's nothing private about this, I said. My boss pulled my contract from his jacket pocket. The same one he had thrown away days earlier. He tore it in half. Then again. Paper fell between us. Effective immediately, he said. Your employment is terminated for cause. Elaine nodded. Termination voids your operational authority key. The system responded before anyone else did. Monitors across the bay shifted from green to amber. Safety mode engaged. Restricted operations, Samir whispered. That's automatic. I looked at my boss. You just removed the last validated human checkpoint. He scoffed. The AI will compensate. Security arrived. One of them avoided my eyes as he gestured toward the exit. As they escorted me down the corridor, I glanced into the server room. A new configuration was loading, rushed, unbalanced, drawing heat without proper distribution. I stopped. That setup will overload. Keep moving, the guard said quietly. I'm serious, I said. That will cascade. My boss didn't turn around. Not your problem anymore. The doors closed behind me, inside. The system tightened its restrictions, and the factory kept running, one decision away from shutting itself down completely. Is it sabotage if the system is protecting itself? I didn't sleep. I sat at my kitchen table with my laptop closed, replaying the server configuration I'd seen as I was escorted out. Heat load misbalanced, redundant cooling bypassed, a shortcut disguised as innovation. James stood in the doorway for a long moment before speaking. They fired you, yes. For cause they tried. He poured coffee and slid the mug toward me. You look like you're still working. I am, I said. Just not for them. I opened the laptop. Buried beneath layers of deprecated architecture was a protocol I had written years earlier, after a contractor once tried to rush an upgrade before a holiday weekend. It wasn't labeled failsafe. It wasn't labeled anything obvious at all. It was simply protection. James watched the screen fill with lines of authorization checks. What happens if you run that? The system stops listening to people who shouldn't be touching it, I said, cleanly. That sounds expensive. So does a fire, I replied. He didn't argue. I drove back just before midnight, parked where cameras didn't bother tracking senior staff anymore. The maintenance terminal still recognized the biometric I hadn't been allowed to use all day. The interface prompted me through confirmations, not warnings. Confirmations. Controlled shutdown across all production lines. Manual restart restricted to system architect of record. My name appeared again. I hesitated, not because I doubted the outcome, but because I understood it too well. Every halted line meant penalties, delays, panic. I thought of the warped batch on line 4, of Frank's empty locker, of the heat rising silently inside a room no one was watching anymore. I typed the command, execute. The response was immediate. Across the facility, machines completed their current cycles and powered down. Conveyors slowed, then stopped. Robotic arms returned to neutral positions. No sparks, no alarms, just silence. I logged out and closed the terminal. By the time I reached my car, my phone was already vibrating. I didn't answer. Inside the factory. The system had done exactly what it was designed to do. It protected itself. And the people who depended on it. How much is silence worth when losses count by the minute? My phone kept vibrating on the kitchen counter. I let it. The first 3 calls came from numbers I recognized. Operations, legal, security. I turned the phone face down and finished my coffee. The 4th call left a voicemail, a familiar voice, suddenly careful. Nora, this is Patricia from the board. We need to speak immediately. James glanced at the phone. They sound scared. They should be, I said. An hour later, a 5th call came through. I answered that one. What do you want? My former boss asked, skipping any pretense. I waited a beat. Is the factory still silent? Yes, he said. Defense production is frozen. Penalties are already accruing. Then listen, I said, because this is the first honest conversation we've had. He exhaled sharply. This doesn't have to be adversarial. It already was, I replied. You just didn't notice when you started it. There was a pause. I could hear voices behind him, tense and overlapping. We've convened an emergency board session, he said. They want you there. I'll attend, I said. With conditions. Silence again. You removed me under false claims, I continued. You erased safeguards you didn't understand, and now the system is doing exactly what it was designed to do. What are your conditions, he asked. I want the truth back in the room, I said publicly, in writing. He swallowed. Be specific. My termination reversed. Your restructuring paused. The vendor contract frozen for review. And you step out of operational authority. That's not your decision, he said. It is, I replied, because I'm the only one who can restart the system. Another voice cut in, louder. She's right, someone said. We've tried everything. My former boss lowered his voice. If we agree, will you bring the factory back online? Yes, I said, carefully. When he asked, when the meeting starts, I said, and not a minute sooner. I ended the call before he could respond. The phone went quiet after that. For the first time since the shutdown, the silence belonged to me. What does accountability look like when money can't fix the damage? They seated me at the long table without ceremony. Patricia spoke first. Nora, we're prepared to listen. I set my phone face up between us. Then we start by correcting the record. My former boss shifted in his chair. He hadn't spoken since I arrived. My termination, I said, was based on false claims. I want a public reversal entered into the minutes. Today. Patricia nodded. Agreed. I didn't look at him. Second. Operational authority is removed from the person who authorized unsafe overrides. He finally spoke. You're blaming me for yes, I said. And the system logs support that. Patricia didn't hesitate. Effective immediately. You're relieved of duty. Security appeared at the door. No one clapped. No one argued. I continued. Third. The vendor contract is frozen, pending an independent investigation. All change orders. All escalation clauses. The board exchanged looks. Then Patricia said, approved. Only then did I open my laptop. I'll bring the system back online, I said, step by step. Silence fell as I typed. Line 1 acknowledged. Line 2 stabilized. Cooling normalized. Power redistributed. The factory came back the way it should have never left, controlled, measured, intact. Samir's voice came through the speaker. All lines green. I closed the laptop. Security escorted my former boss past the table. He didn't look at me. He didn't need to. Patricia exhaled. What happens now? I stood, Now you decide whether you want systems that run or stories that sound good. No one stopped me as I walked out. The factory hummed again behind me, this time in the right hands. What remains after the noise fades, the agreement was thinner than my old contract. No bonus clauses, no vanity title, no language about loyalty, just responsibility. Patricia slid it across the table. This protects the architecture, she said, and the people trained to maintain it. It protects knowledge, I replied. That's the point, she nodded. We'd like you to stay. I closed the folder without signing. I'll stay long enough to stabilize what matters. After that, you don't need me here every day. You need the rules to outlive me. Samir stood by the window, arms crossed. So this isn't goodbye. It's a handoff. I said. I signed. Over the next weeks, authority was distributed instead of hoarded. Maintenance decisions required human confirmation. AI recommendations were logged, reviewed, and challenged. Frank came back, not as a relic, but as a mentor. His first rule was simple. Machines talk, he told the apprentices. You just have to listen. My former boss never returned. The board announced his permanent removal during a routine update. The way you announce weather, no drama, no apology tour. One afternoon, James met me outside the building. You ready? Yes, I said. They are. I left my badge on the desk, not as a statement, as a completion. The factory kept running, clean, quiet, accountable. Before I walked out for the last time, Patricia said, you changed how we think about automation. No, I corrected gently. I reminded you that it doesn't think at all. At home that night, I slept without my phone on the table. The system no longer needed me to protect it. That was the goal all along. The lesson I carry forward is simple and earn true expertise is not loud, but it is structural. When you build something with care, integrity, and foresight, it will stand long after titles are stripped away, and it will reveal, without cruelty or revenge, exactly who was holding it together. AI did not replace me. It proved why I was still necessary.